Chapter 1. The Discovery. The planet Zorath was a desolate wasteland, a forgotten rock on the edge of the galaxy. Its surface was a barren expanse of jagged rocks and endless caves, with the sky perpetually shrouded in a thick, oppressive haze. It was a place where no one ventured, a place where time itself seemed to have given up. But for Captain Elias Voss, it was just another mission. Elias was a scavenger, a man who made his living by picking through the remnants of ancient civilizations. He had heard rumors of a hidden treasure buried deep within the caves of Zorath, a relic from a time long before the rise of the human empire. It was a fool's errand, but Elias was desperate. His ship was falling apart, his credits were running low, and he needed a miracle. He landed his battered shuttle on the rocky surface, the engines sputtering as they shut down. The air was thin, and the gravity was slightly heavier than what he was used to, but he adjusted quickly. He grabbed his gear, a flashlight, a plasma cutter, and a small drone for reconnaissance, and set off into the caves. The entrance was a gaping maw, dark and foreboding. The walls were smooth, as if they had been carved by some ancient force, and the air was thick with the scent of decay. Elias activated his flashlight, the beam cutting through the darkness as he ventured deeper into the cave. Hours passed as he navigated the labyrinthine tunnels, his drone scanning ahead for any signs of danger. He found nothing but more rock and dust, and he was beginning to think the rumors were just that, rumors. But then, just as he was about to turn back, his drone picked up something unusual. It was a chamber deep within the cave, with walls that glowed faintly with an otherworldly light. Elias quickened his pace, his heart pounding with anticipation. He stepped into the chamber, and what he saw took his breath away. In the center of the room was a woman. She was unlike anyone he had ever seen. Her skin was a deep, iridescent blue, with faint patterns that shimmered like starlight. Her hair was long and silver, flowing down her back like a waterfall of moonlight. She was tall, taller than any human, with a slender, graceful build. But what struck him most were her eyes, large, almond-shaped, and glowing with a soft, golden light. She was chained to the wall, her wrists and ankles bound by thick, metallic manacles that seemed to pulse with a faint, malevolent energy. Her head was bowed, her hair falling over her face, and she didn't move as Elias approached. "Hello," he called out, his voice echoing through the chamber. "Can you hear me?" There was no response. Elias stepped closer, his flashlight trained on her. He could see that the chains were ancient, covered in strange runes that he couldn't understand. The woman herself seemed to be in some kind of stasis, her chest rising and falling with slow, shallow breaths. Elias hesitated. He had no idea who or what this woman was, but he couldn't just leave her here. He activated his plasma cutter and began to cut through the chains. The metal was tough, but the cutter was powerful, and after several minutes of work, the chains finally fell away. The woman collapsed into his arms, her body limp and lifeless. Elias caught her, his heart racing as he held her. She was lighter than he expected, her body cool to the touch. He laid her down gently on the floor, checking for any signs of injury. "Can you hear me?" he asked again, his voice softer this time. Her eyes fluttered open, and she looked up at him. For a moment, there was only confusion in her gaze, but then her eyes focused on him, and she spoke. "Oh, who are you?" she asked, her voice soft and melodic, like the sound of wind chimes. "My name is Elias," he said. "I'm a scavenger. I found you here, chained up. Do you know how long you've been here?" The woman shook her head slowly. I do not know. It feels like an eternity." Elias helped her sit up, his mind racing with questions. "What's your name?" he asked. "I am Lyra," she said. I was a prisoner. My people, they betrayed me. They chained me here, left me to rot." Elias frowned. Why would they do that? Lyra looked away, her expression pained. I was different. I had abilities. They feared me. They thought I was a threat. Elias didn't know what to say. He had heard stories of alien races with strange powers, but he had never encountered one before. He didn't know if he could trust her, but he couldn't just leave her here. Come on, he said, standing up and offering her his hand. Let's get out of here. Lyra hesitated, then took his hand. Her touch was cool, but there was a strength in her grip that surprised him. She stood up, her movements graceful and fluid, and together they made their way out of the cave. Chapter 2. The Journey. The journey back to Elias's shuttle was slow and arduous. Lyra was weak from her long imprisonment, and the harsh environment of Zorath took its toll on both of them. But as they walked, Elias found himself drawn to her. There was something about her, something ancient and powerful, that fascinated him. As they traveled, Lyra began to open up to him. She told him of her people, the Ael'therians, a race of beings who had once been masters of the galaxy. They were a peaceful people, but they had been torn apart by war and betrayal. Lyra had been one of their most powerful warriors, but her abilities had made her a target. Her own people had turned on her, fearing what she could do. I was a weapon, she said, her voice tinged with bitterness. They used me, and when they no longer needed me, they cast me aside. Elias listened in silence, his mind reeling from the enormity of what she was telling him. He had always thought of aliens as being so different from humans, but Lyra's story was all too familiar. It was a story of power, betrayal, and fear, a story that could have been ripped from the pages of human history. When they finally reached the shuttle, Elias helped Lyra inside. She was exhausted, her body trembling with fatigue. He gave her some water and a ration bar, which she ate slowly, savoring each bite. We need to get off this planet, Elias said, sitting down in the pilot's seat. But I don't know where to go. My ship's in bad shape, and I don't have enough fuel to get us far. Lyra looked at him, her golden eyes glowing softly in the dim light of the shuttle. I can help you, she said. I know of a place, a hidden world where we can be safe. It is far from here, but I can guide you. Elias hesitated. He didn't know if he could trust her, but he didn't have many options. All right, he said. Tell me where to go. Lyra gave him the coordinates, and Elias input them into the shuttle's navigation system. The engines roared to life, and they lifted off, leaving the desolate surface of Zorath behind. Chapter 3. The Hidden World. The journey to the hidden world was long and fraught with danger. Elias's shuttle was barely space-worthy, and they were pursued by a group of mercenaries who had caught wind of their escape. But with Lyra's guidance, they managed to evade their pursuers and make it to the hidden world. It was a beautiful place, a lush, green planet with a sky that shimmered with the light of two suns. The air was warm and sweet, and the landscape was dotted with crystal-clear lakes and towering mountains. It was a paradise, a place where they could finally rest. Elias landed the shuttle in a clearing near a small lake, and they stepped out into the sunlight. Lyra took a deep breath, her eyes closing as she savored the feel of the warm air on her skin. It has been so long, she said, her voice filled with wonder. I had almost forgotten what it was like to feel the sun on my face. Elias watched her, a smile tugging at the corners of his lips. She was beautiful, in a way that was almost otherworldly. But there was also a sadness in her eyes, a pain that he couldn't quite understand. Lyra, he said, stepping closer to her. What will you do now that you're free? She turned to look at him, her golden eyes meeting his. I do not know, she admitted. I have been a prisoner for so long. I do not even know who I am anymore. Elias reached out, taking her hand in his. You're not alone anymore, he said. You have me, and together we'll figure it out. Lyra looked at him, her expression softening. "Thank you, Elias," she said. "You have given me something I thought I had lost forever. Hope." They stood there for a moment, the two of them, in the middle of a strange new world. And for the first time in a long time, they both felt a sense of peace. Chapter 4. The New Beginning. Days turned into weeks, and Elias and Lyra began to build a new life for themselves on the hidden world. They built a small shelter near the lake, using materials from the shuttle and the surrounding environment. They hunted for food, explored the planet, and slowly began to heal from the wounds of their past. As they spent more time together, Elias found himself growing closer to Lyra. She was unlike anyone he had ever met, strong, intelligent, and kind. She had a quiet strength that he admired, and a wisdom that came from centuries of life. One evening, as they sat by the fire, Elias turned to her. "Lyra," he said, "I've been thinking about us, about what we have." She looked at him, her golden eyes glowing softly in the firelight. "What do you mean?" she asked. "I mean, I care about you," he said, "more than I've cared about anyone in a long time. And I don't want to lose that. I don't want to lose you." Lyra smiled, a soft, gentle smile that made his heart ache. "I care about you too, Elias," she said. "You have given me a second chance at life, and I do not want to lose that either." Elias reached out, taking her hand in his. "Then let's make a promise," he said. "A promise to stay together, no matter what. To face whatever comes our way, together." Lyra nodded, her eyes filled with determination. "I promise," she said. And in that moment, as the fire crackled and the stars shone overhead, Elias and Lyra made a vow to each other. A vow to stand together, to face the challenges of the universe as one. And as they sat there, hand in hand, they knew that they had found something rare and precious, a bond that would last a lifetime. Years passed, and Elias and Lyra's bond only grew stronger. They explored the hidden world together, uncovering its secrets and building a life for themselves. They faced challenges and dangers, but they always faced them together. And as they looked up at the stars, they knew that they had found something truly special. They had found each other in a universe that was vast and unforgiving. And in each other, they had found a home. For Elias, it was a reminder of the strength and resilience of humanity. For Lyra, it was a testament to the power of hope and love. And together, they were a beacon of light in the darkness, a reminder that even in the farthest reaches of the galaxy, there was still a place for love, for hope, and for the indomitable spirit of those who dared to dream. And so, they lived on in their hidden world under the light of two suns. And they knew that no matter what the future held, they would face it together. For they were no longer just a human and an alien. They were a team, a family, and they were unstoppable,